Automation is appearing everywhere, from driverless cars to automatic lawnmowers, and in every sector, including agriculture, finance, education, medicine, and many more. With so many sectors affected and technology advancing every day, many people are concerned for their job or their potential to find jobs in the future. But are these concerns justified? If so, how will society adapt to these rapid changes, and is there anything we can do about it? With the ever-increasing pace that technology is advancing, job automation is becoming a real concern for many people. And it's not just those who are employed in low-skill, manual labor positions who are concerned. Many high-skill professions, such as data analysts, are starting to feel the pressures of automation thanks to the advent of new technologies like machine learning. With these new advancements in computer science making machines smarter, and robotics making them more capable, there is a concern that there won't be any jobs left for humans to do. But this isn't the first time that people have been scared of automation. Technologies that reduce labor have been around since the agricultural revolution, and our current society is built off of them. Inventions that allowed one man to produce enough food to feed 20 is what let other people spend their time specializing in other tasks, such as trade, medicine, or governing. Indeed, the overall trend of human history could be summarized as humans getting more specialized. Since functioning in our society requires everyone to have a specialty of their very own, many people tend to fear new technologies that offer to do their job for them. Past inventions, such as tractors, power looms, and the printing press, have all generated unrest or even riots due to fears that these machines could lead to mass unemployment. With the luxury of hindsight, we know that these technologies didn't lead to wide-scale unemployment, but it's easy to see where these fears came from. In the 1850s, farming jobs represented over half of the job market in the United States. As new technologies threatened these jobs, many people couldn't imagine how the country would adapt. But adapt we did, and today, agriculture only represents 3% of the United States job market. Many of the displaced workers transferred to service and sales jobs as those industries began to boom. This trend has happened all throughout human history and continues to happen today. In fact, 1/3 of the jobs that exist right now didn't exist or barely existed 25 years ago. But this trend is heavily reliant on the new technologies creating new industries that can employ displaced workers. Not everyone is convinced that this trend is going to hold up against new technologies such as machine learning. Many recent advancements in computer science have led experts to warn that we are entering a new phase called cognitive automation. Cognitive automation is allowing machines to take on new tasks that were once thought to be strictly in the domain of humans. As machines continue to take on increasingly complex tasks, humans may find that there is nowhere else left for us to specialize. This is happening quickly too. Current research suggests by 2030, over 400 million people could lose their jobs to automation. A more extreme estimate suggests this number could be as high as 800 million people, which would be the equivalent of every person in the United States becoming unemployed 2 times over. Now, before you grow a beard and join the Amish, it's worth pointing out that these are just estimates. These estimates are made by breaking down jobs into their fundamental task, then looking at current technology to see how far we have to go before machines can perform these tasks. There are some weaknesses with this method. For example, the task of installation is shared across many disciplines, including plumbers and computer programmers. But obviously, these professions require 2 completely different forms of installation. Weaknesses aside, this method does at least give us a halfway decent estimate at what the future holds for us. Using this method, the McKinsey Institute estimates that half of all job-related tasks can be automated by 2050. But that doesn't mean that half of all jobs can be automated. A majority of jobs are partially composed of tasks that can be automated, and only about 5% of jobs are at risk of full automation. But just because a job can be automated, that doesn't mean that it will be. In reality, there are many more factors to consider. These other factors include the cost of developing and deploying the technology, labor market dynamics, social factors, and economic benefits. To make matters more complicated, the significance of each of these factors changes depending on the industry. Social acceptance, for example, is going to be a lot more relevant in industries that involve caregiving, such as medicine, and less relevant in industries such as manufacturing. In manufacturing, economics is king. Automation is cheaper, more productive, and more reliable. Even if people don't feel comfortable with automation, a majority will still tend to buy the inexpensive higher quality product, even if that product was made by a robot. Regulatory approval will also vary drastically depending on the industry. Regulators are going to pay much more attention to things like autonomous vehicles than autonomous lawnmowers. And finally, there is always the human aspect to take into account, as the cost and supply of human labor will affect when and if automation makes sense in an industry. Cooks, for example, only make an average of $10 per hour, and there are plenty of people willing to do the job. Because of this, automation might not make sense even if the technology does exist. Taking all of this into account, there is reason to believe that new technologies will supplement human labor, not replace it. In your office, you may find that algorithms track all of your expenses and report them for you. CEOs might take advantage of programs that examine the entire corporation from the bottom up and highlight potential issues before they happen. Your local hospital may have machines that assist in the emergency room to take care of common illnesses and pass on the advanced cases to doctors. The result of this is that machines will free humans from mundane tasks and allow us to place our focus elsewhere. But naturally, you can't talk about automating 5 to 10% of the world's jobs and not expect that to have an effect on the economy. Automation tends to increase production and decrease cost, which results in economic growth. For developing nations, this means that the economy can advance faster, which increases the overall quality of life. For developed nations, automation may allow countries to maintain their current economic growth even in the face of declining birth rates and an increase in the retired population. But even with all of these economic benefits, there are going to be some issues. Even in the best case scenario, automation is going to lead to some medium-term unemployment as people lose their jobs and must retrain to find new ones. Governments and corporations can smooth this transition by providing retraining programs or redeploying displaced workers. Ironically, this is a task that computers can assist with. Algorithms can analyze a job that is being automated and determine other positions that require a similar skill set. If that skill set has become obsolete, then workers will need retraining. But not everyone is going to be able to adapt to a more technical job market, and because of this, it may be necessary to provide more financial safety nets for employees that find themselves without a job. Safety nets will help make the transition to a more automated society smoother and provide reassurances to older workers that may have difficulty adapting. Access to education may also become increasingly important, as a more advanced job market may require a higher educated workforce. Automation can be a frightening prospect. People have feared machines taking their jobs since the first jobs were around. But past experience shows us that automation tends to lead to job creation, not job loss. Of course, cognitive automation has the potential to be different, but most studies believe that it will follow the same trend as past automation. One thing is for sure, some jobs will be lost and people will be displaced. Governments and corporations can make this transition smoother by providing retraining programs and offering more safety nets for workers. We are entering a new age and our robotic colleagues will be standing by our side the entire time. Let's just hope we can keep up. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and sharing this anywhere it's appropriate. As a small channel, gaining viewership is quite difficult, so sharing really helps me a lot. Some quick updates. I now have a Twitter and Instagram. Follow those for some behind the scenes posts and to stay updated. Links are in the description. I also have a Patreon. I was going to wait a while before I made it, but I had 1 or 2 people ask about it, so I decided to create it. Thanks for asking, and the link for that is also in the description. Consider following the Forthright podcast, where I go more in depth on topics covered in the show. And finally, thanks for watching, and please enjoy the rest of your internet going experience.